guys. Give a round of applause for Mr. John.
Alright, just to answer your question, from here to Baby Beach is like I-95 to what you guys just went over. Alright, so it's going to be a lot cooler. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kuya. I'm a ranger and the guide inside the National Park System. Today I work here as a guide. This cave is interesting because this cave is linked to the history of my country. What am I out for now? Alright, inside this cave is where we have some of the best preserved indigenous drawings on the island. Also inside this cave is where the park does some of its important conservation work. And also the area around this cave is also part of the Aruban history. So if you guys are ready, let's start going in. I'm going to start giving you guys a very short geological introduction to the island of Aruba so you understand how these caves were formed and how they function. The island of Aruba is about 92 million years old. 92 million years ago, where the South American tectonic plate is diving underneath the Caribbean plate. At that point in time, only happened about 200 miles south of us, or where we're standing right now. Nowadays, that same fault line is about 900 miles away from where we are standing right now. But at that point in time, a volcano formed in this area, and over millions of years, this volcano kept on growing, but there were also very long periods of time that this volcano was not active. During those periods of time, huge coral reefs formed around this volcano. And the estimate is that between 32 to 35 million years ago, the whole system broke the surface of the ocean. Officially, the island of Aruba was born. Basically, where we are standing right now, these are fossilized coral reefs. These are limestone caves. But still, between 20 to 25,000 years ago, this still used to be the sea level. When we come back out, you look at the side of the cliff, you're going to see where the ocean was touching the coastline. This first part of the cave was formed by the ocean, the rest of the cave by erosion. And it's simple. Limestone gets dissolved by water, thousands of years of rainwater sift into the limestone, open it up. This cave has a length of approximately 1,400 feet. We will not go all the way in the back there. It's for the conservation work that we're doing here. But like I said, on the way, we're going to pass by some of the best preserved indigenous drawings on the island. And as an extra, basically, where the Aruba National Park is established, geologically, this is the oldest part of the island. So you guys are... Oh yes, you're standing in quite a bit of history. Right, Tom? Good job. All right. If you start looking here in the ceiling, that's where they start popping up. Let's get a little bit closer. If you want, I'm going to take a cool picture for you in the back there. All right? Here you see a couple of them. You guys come over here. This is where the larger collection sits. They're pretty cool, huh?
They just hold it like this.
Some of you guys can come over here also. That's where the petroglyphs are. They're pretty cool, huh? You guys can come a little bit closer.
Do they have meanings?
Don't be. Now you're gonna get a little bit of Aruban history classes, man.
I would say, what do they mean? Yeah.
Don't be afraid, I don't bite. Who lived on the island of Aruba. We have the pre-ceramic Indians, also known as the archaic Indians, and the ceramic Indians. The pre-ceramic Indians are from about 2,500 years ago until about 500 years after Christ. Of them, we know very little. The only thing they left behind were shallow graves, primitive tools, primitive type of ceramics. Nobody knows who they were, where they came from, where they went to. And by shallow graves, they would bury their people about a foot underneath the ground and then stack rocks over them. Then we have the ceramic period. Of these indigenous people, we really have the information. We know they lived on the island for approximately 500 years after Christ until the Spanish reached these islands in 1499. We know they belonged to a tribe that were called the Cacatillos that lived on the coast of Venezuela, but they belonged to the Yanomami culture that came from the Amazon basin all the way up to the north coast of South America. And these Cacatillo Indians, they had 3 villages on the island of Aruba. One of them on the south coast, what we call nowadays Savaneta. That's where we also assume they came on land because it's the shortest distance between Aruba and Venezuela. It's only 7 miles that separates us at that point. You guys enter the park by the Vista Center, right? All right, about 3 miles before you reach the Vista Center, you go through the town of Santa Cruz. That's where the second and largest village was on the island of Aruba. The third village was right between Santa Cruz and the California Lighthouse in a neighborhood we call nowadays Tanquilander. And these Kakatiya Indians, they left behind some very beautiful ceramics with artwork on top of it. Also some very beautiful jewelry made with shells, coral stones, and rocks. They buried their people more elaborately. They buried their people in fetal position with 4 urns around them. And what made them unique is they would bury their dead inside their houses. They had a very spiritual connection with the dead. The more important people, fetal position, inside a very large urn, usually not always covered with a huge turtle shell, but they would bury him also inside his house. And these Kakatiya Indians on 37 different places on the island left drawings behind. 98% of the time, the drawings of plants, animals, humans are a combination of the 3 of them. It's only in 3 areas on the island that left drawings behind that nobody really knows what they mean. This cave is one of them. What we know for sure is they never lived inside this cave, but that this cave religiously was important for them. This is where the medicine man would come, do whatever ceremony they would do at that time, and start making these drawings. And what they used to make these drawings with made them also very unique. They would grab the limestone, grind it into such a fine powder that it would become like a paste, kind of like toothpaste, only thicker. You guys have been driving around, so I guess you've noticed there's a lot of reddish soil on the island. It has a lot of iron oxide. The 2 of them, they mix together, they make these drawings, and these drawings have been dated between 900 to 1100 years old. So it's very cool to still have them in such good condition. Any questions? What you ask, if anybody knows what they mean, nobody knows really what they mean. What we know is they categorize them as shamanistic drawings. And within the family of shamanistic drawings, you have 2 types. You have geomorphics and zoomorphic. Geomorphics are like this one over here that you see here in the center. This one also they consider geomorphic. These ones are also geomorphics, and the ones that you see right above your head. Zoomorphics are like this one here that looks like a turtle shell. You have one here that looks like an insect. And there's one right there in the back there that looks like a fish. Those are zoomorphics. And the only answer we got when we asked the archaeologist that taught us all this, he told us, well, basically you just have to figure out what they drank or smoked at that point in time, and then you try to figure it out. The only thing we know is that nowadays there's a very big study being done about trying to figure out what they mean. The only problem they're having right now is that since 2017, the border between Aruba and Venezuela has been closed by the political situation over there. And there is no communication between the local archaeologists and the ones from over there. So that study is like stagnated. All right, follow me over here. It's known as active caves. Why? Through erosion, they keep on changing over time. And basically how that process works, limestone gets dissolved by water, but also dissolves minerals. These minerals will start crystallizing at a certain point and start forming stalactites, stalagmites. And how the process starts, you see it right down here on the floor. Depending on how we put the light, you guys see like shiny particles that looks like glitter? Yep. They're shiny there on the floor. Those are minerals that have been dissolved. Eventually they will start crystallizing, forming a stalagmite like that one on the floor. Somewhere in the future, it's gonna be that stalactite that's coming down from the ceiling. In our climate, it might take even over 1,000 years, but eventually we're gonna have another stalagmite like that one over there. Now, buddy, you wanna meet my friend Fred? Come over here. Excuse me, right here. That's Fred sitting in the hole there. You see him? What is it?
It's a crab.
Yep, it's a crab. That's my buddy Fred.
Hi, Fred.
All right? You guys follow me in the back here. This is a small proof that this used to be a coral reef. This is a piece of fossilized seashell. This is the inside of a conch. And the only explanation you have that this could have gone here all the way in the back here is that at a certain point in time, this was underneath the ocean. There's no other explanation for it. Also, this is the furthest we'll go inside the cave. The reason is pure conservation work, but still in the back here, you see more of these stalactite formations. Why don't we let people go further in the back? In the back here, we have a type of bat that lives in here. They belong to the long-tongued fruit bat family. But these bats are what we call a keystone species in our ecosystem. Why? About 80% of all the native cactuses we have on the island, they only flower at night. The only animal who pollinate these flowers are these long-tongued fruit bats. And studies have shown that if they disappear out of our ecosystem, that in between 75 to 100 years, at least 70% of all the native cactuses will disappear with them. In the back here is where the third largest breeding colony is on the island of Aruba. Now look, bats are strange looking, but they also have strange behavior. And with these long-tongued fruit bats, the strange behavior lies with the females. Why? I didn't say anything, ma'am. Why the females? The females of these type of bats, when they have their babies, they carry it on their bellies. If you bother them, they'll let that baby fall. They will never pick it back up again. They'll just let them die. And as this is a breeding colony, we try to protect them. Just to give you guys an example, 25 years ago, when I started working inside the park, we only had 90 breeding pairs in the back here. They were on the brink of becoming endangered. Nowadays, we have an average between 700 to 800 breeding pairs in the back here. So it's past the work we've been doing. Where you guys come from?
Michigan.
Michigan? All of you from Michigan?
Toronto.
Toronto?
Yeah.
Chicago? Well, we're gonna see who went to biology classes. Limestone caves are also known as artistic caves. If you look at this piece over here, but you have to look at it from here, going up from the front to the back, what does it look like? Yeah, 100% naturally made. Nobody ever touched it. It's just how these minerals have been building up. You see where it's coming down from the ceiling, and eventually when they meet each other again, the inside of this cave will change. Now I'm gonna ask you guys a favor. This is how these minerals crystallize and form. I told you, shiny things. Got it? All right, here's where we have some of the better preserved drawings. You see them in the area around here. But also within this collection over here is where, for me, the most important of all the drawings are inside this cave. For this, you guys have to get a little bit closer. See what it is? Get closer in the back. Don't be afraid. It's a handprint. It tells me humans were here, but for me as a local, this is a connection with the history of my island. This is part of who we are as Arubans nowadays, and I feel strongly about it. All right, the fences that we have in front of it are not only to protect the bats that we have in here, but it's also to protect this cave against humans. And it's against this.
Oh, vandalism.
And this started happening in the last 30 years. And for me, when you start destroying your own history, there's something wrong in your brains. But still, we have some pretty cool graffiti in here also. Oh yes. Follow me over here. Over here, 1830, 1844. Yeah, one here, 1861. The oldest graffiti we have in here is this one, 1583. And we've had people in the past tell us that, yeah, somebody could have scratched and made them up. Yes, the person who wrote them. Nobody writes like this anymore in the world. Basically, nowadays, everybody writes like a doctor making a prescription, and that's definite. Secondly, you can go to the National Archives, you look these names up, you'll find these people registered living on the island of Aruba during that period of time. And still, if you don't believe it's true, my last name is not printed on my shirt yet, but he can vouch for me. Yeah, if you guys come over here. This here is my great-great-grandfather, 1845.
A vandal.
Yep, don't worry, my great-grandfather sits on that side, so I come out of a family of vandals. Vandalizing caves. All right, but you guys see this name here, Kravenorth? It's also related to the history around this cave. If you guys come out here.
Names.
What?
We were reading the names.
It's cool,
Yeah.
it's cool. All right, you guys see the rooftop in the back there? In the 1800s, there were no private properties on the island of Aruba. Everything belonged to the King of Holland. Around 1825, Mr. Kravenorth lived on the island of Aruba. He was married to a local lady. But besides that, he was the top official on the island of Aruba. He was the island's commander. At that time, the Dutch ruled the colonies with a military hierarchy. 1835, he reached his pension age. He made a special petition to the King of Holland. If he could get that piece of property as part of his pension, 1836, it was granted to him. Officially, till the day of today, it's the first piece of documented private property on the island of Aruba. Now you would ask yourself, who's the crazy to want a piece of property in the middle of nowhere in the back here? Well, you see where all those trees are in the back there? That's where the only freshwater spring is on the island of Aruba. It's the only place on the island where fresh water comes out of the ground naturally. And by documents, we know that he planted plantain, bananas, beans, corn, peanuts, and lime trees. Together with his pension, he made a pretty good living. And now, if you guys want, Donnie's gonna take you guys over there. And any of you have the guts to put your feet in the water, you're gonna have a very beautiful free fish pedicure. And if we hear the screams and the giggles, we know it's a good one. All right? You guys enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so another history lesson dito sa Fontein Cave. At magaling yung yung guide. So happy ako doon. So sana naging happy din kayo. Bye-bye.